Mr. Woodhouse and Miss Feed for this revision workshop in preparation for your assessment window after half term. Some pictures there of our previous year 11 and 6 formers who've left with some sparkling results over the years. Hopefully this will be you in 12-14 months time, but obviously the journey starts a little bit sooner than that. It starts over the next couple of weeks. So we're just going to talk to you this evening a little bit about preparing for the assessment window after half term and things that you can do to put in place to sort of help you and have a big impact, and some strategies and learning tools that you may want to implement over the half term while you're doing a little bit of revision and over the assessment window for the first 2 weeks. Your formal assessments, these will take a period of over 2 weeks. We're looking at more formal exams and what you've normally used to in classrooms, so normally be used to sort of low stake quizzes and end of topic tests, but this is more of an opportunity where it's a bit more of a formal exam and a more of a formal setting. It gives you an opportunity to sort of develop exam strategies, revision strategies. So this week's obviously dedicated to your revision week and your lessons, and your teachers have shown you a few strategies that you can implement, and obviously we'll pick up a few extras tonight as well on how to revise and the common themes and topics that you need to revise in preparation for those exams. And it's another opportunity as well to sort of manage your time and organise your time. So as well as doing the revision week, we expect that you'll do a little bit of revision over half term. If you can, maybe it's an hour a day during that half term period, and that'll be about managing your time. So spend a little bit of time with family and friends and a little bit of sort of downtime as well, but also building in some time where you spend some time revising on certain subjects. And it's all about really for the next couple of weeks is, once you've had a little go at these assessments, can we start putting things in place for your next steps and putting a plan in place? So it's giving you an opportunity of seeing where you are now, and an opportunity for us to start looking forward into sort of year 11. There'll be 2 assessment weeks. There'll be week 1 and week 2. Week 1 is predominantly your core subjects. Most of you have seen this before. We've got it up on the screens around the academy. We've given you hard copies. It's up on our Teams page as well. I've also shared it with you during assemblies over the last couple of weeks. So there should be no surprises on there. But the first week is predominantly the core subjects, and as you can see, some of those exams are quite long. The first exam, obviously, English is a 2-hour and 5-minute exam, and then the others of obviously of different times depending on the subjects. But you'll pretty much have an exam every morning for that first week, at least Monday to Thursday anyway. You'll have a little bit of a break, and then you'll have another exam just before lunch, and then after lunch you'll have a little bit of downtime in terms of back to normal lessons. But obviously in your lessons you'll be doing some follow-up and extra preparation in terms of the exams for following the forthcoming days. So week 1 is predominantly your core subjects, so your English, Maths and Science, and as we get to the end of the week, Friday, you'll sort of start with the option subjects. Okay. Week 2 is all of your option subjects. Obviously you're only involved in the exams for the subjects that you currently have opted into. So you will have 4 option subjects. You should have 4 subjects on there that you have exams for. You'll see as well that some of your options have more than 1 exam. So computer science has 2 exams. In languages you have reading and writing and listening. Geography you have 2 papers as well. So you can see there's quite a selection of exams, and obviously these papers will be picking up different content and different themes, which your teachers will obviously be preparing you for this week. And there'll be some revision sessions the evening before those exams. So if you've got computer science on Tuesday, there'll be drop-in sessions for computer science on the Monday. Similarly for languages and food, there will be revision sessions on the night before on the Tuesday, which we'll pass on in due course. The expectation is that these are drop-in sessions, so they're not mandatory, but we do encourage that you get into good habits now and try and attend those sessions, and obviously you just fine-tunes any sort of last-minute content or any skills that you would need in preparation for those exams. Okay, and again, those will be either in the theatre or in the big double classroom that we have upstairs on floor 1. Okay, but we'll share all seating arrangements and seating plans with you when you come back in on that first Monday. Okay. And sort of last but not least, but this gives us an opportunity to sort of go through the process that we're probably going to go through in 12 to 14 months time. So yes, it's an intense 2 weeks, but we've got it sort of gets you sort of conditioned and into good routines for that preparation next summer. And these are formal assessments, so they will be treated like what we would normally do for year 11 and what you'll be experiencing in the summer. So there's obviously, we've spoke about the revision and getting into good habits, so doing a little bit of revision during the half term. I mentioned before, if you can try and squeeze in an hour a day, that would be quite useful. Obviously, you've had the revision week this week, and revision will continue on during that 2 week period when you return, plus the drop-in sessions after school, just to support you. But as we go into those exams, you'll be asked to go into silence. Phones and watches will be out of sight, so phones will have to be handed in. If you've got sort of your iWatches or your electronic watches, your smart watches, they need to be placed on the desk. We would recommend that you bring a water bottle, so that you can obviously keep hydrated and keep those sort of keep a clear head when you're working. Equipment is provided for you, so there'll be a pencil case on each of your desks with the equipment that you need. If you do use highlighters and things for sort of highlighting keywords or any sort of underlining or highlighting sort of areas that you need to key terminology, then please bring those if that's one of your strategies for helping you sort of put answers together and helping you answer effectively. Make sure it sounds obvious, but go to the toilet before the exam. Some of them the exams are quite a long time. You've got an hour and a half maths exam, you've got a 2 hour DT exam, you've got possibly a 2 hour English exam. So get into good habits, go to the toilet before, and then obviously you're ready, you've got your water bottle, you're ready, you're prepared to go into the exam. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, exam conditions. So it's a little bit different to sort of your low stakes quizzes in classrooms and end of topic tests where you may get some sort of tips and hints from your teachers. You will enter into the exam hall in silence. You will sit at a desk, a single desk, and you do not leave until that exam time is up. And obviously, last but definitely not least, use your time effectively. The exams are quite a long period, but that gives you enough time to work through your answers, make sure you're happy with your answers, proofread, check through that you're happy, make sure that you're happy with what you've got and that you've answered and addressed the questions as best that you possibly can. I'm going to hand over to Miss Speed now, who's going to talk a little bit about preparing for revision. This will sort of complement the revision strategies that your teachers have been sharing with you this week already. Obviously, you can use these over your half-term holidays to do a little bit of revision, and evenings before and days before those exams over the 2 week period after half term. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Evening folks, evening year 10. So just a few bits and pieces about preparing for revision and some generic strategies that you'll be able to apply into lots of different subjects. Okay. So, here we go. So a little bit about thinking about the difference between good revisers and poor revisers. Bearing in mind that you'll be going into a revision period while you're on half term, you need to build up some really good habits. So things such as eating breakfast, that prepares you for the day, okay? Having a good night's sleep, getting some fresh air, spreading out your revision. I'm going to talk in a minute about organising your time, planning your time, and chunking your revision, so then if you're likely successful because you're doing a little bit at a time. If you can, finding somewhere at home where you can revise quietly, whether that be your bedroom, whether that be a space downstairs, but finding that space that you can make yours, and that's an environment for you to learn and study in. Another top tip, and I know you teenagers find this really hard, put your phone away. It becomes a real distraction while you're working. Physically go and put it in a different room. Put it under the mattress of bed so you can't get to it, because then you can focus about half an hour, block of time, 45 minutes, you're going to do a block of revision. Is your room ready for revisions? Whatever space you're going to use to revise in, have you got equipment? Have you got post-it notes? Have you got some flashcards? we've got this equipment in school. If you need some, let us know and we can give you some resources to take home over half term. Don't be worried about putting post-it notes up all over the walls. They come off the walls again, and it really is a useful visual tool to help you revise. Get yourselves organised, have your notes, have any exercise books that are in school, take them home so you've got them at home to be able to revise from. Okay? I think the last little picture there is a timetable, so I'm going to come to that in just a second. So here's an example of a weekly timetable. So think about organising your timetable of revision over half term, and in the first 2 weeks when we come back, build in any homework you've got. So if you've got homework from your teachers that's revision, that counts as a session. Build in specific chunks of revision. So don't just say that you're going to work on maths. Say exactly what you're going to do. Is it going to be your probability diagrams, or are you in physics going to do a practice exam question on states of energy, or for Animal Farm, you're going to use your flashcards to revise the characters of the novel. Decide what it is that you're going to revise and jot that down, and how long that you're going to spend on it. Book in your social time. So if you know you've got an event coming in, family or friends, book it in, because it's important that you find that balance. If you have other commitments like football training or cadets, book that in, because you need to still do those things. And really importantly, give yourself a reward at the end of each day. That might be time on the Xbox, it might be, for me, it's always chocolate. When I've got a set of books to mark, I always have to have a pile of chocolate to help me through it. It might be a Netflix movie, it might be a box set you're watching, but give yourself a reward for the work that you're doing. We're, as human beings, we're intrinsically motivated, and those rewards will really help us focus on being successful. But think carefully about how you organise your time. If anyone needs support with some revision blank timetables, again, consult those out for you to take away with you over half term. A lot of young people today, and adults to be fair, like using computers to revise. So thinking about those interactive resources that are out there. There's GCSE Bite Size, there's Caboodle, there's Hegarty Maths, GCSE Pod. There's loads of different blended opportunities out there, and using computers to help you access your learning. All of your resources for your subjects are on Teams. So hop into Teams, hop into your class materials, and have a look at revising some of the PowerPoints and the resources your teachers have put on there for you. If you need a bit of help controlling your mobile phone use, get yourself Flipped or Self-Control as apps, because they will physically control your Wi-Fi and your phone access and help you have some time where you're revising, and then balance that with some time when you are on your phone. So if you need some support there, there's some apps to help you out there. Couple of 20-minute ideas for revision. Revision is best done in chunks of time. Don't try and think, I'm going to cram for 2 hours the night before my exam, because that actually will not help you at all. So here's some examples of some 20-minute ideas. So if you chunk your revision into lots of 20-minute blocks, 3 20-minute blocks a day, then you're going to be really effective at your revision. You're going to focus, you're going to be more energized, you're going to be more successful at the end of that 20-minute chunk of time. So there's loads of things on there. And I've seen people doing this week, as I've been going around lessons this week. We've had students making flashcards, we've seen people do planning pages, we've seen revision clocks, we've seen quizzing going on. All of that are things that you can still do at home. Okay, so why is revision important? Why is it important to get into some good habits? Now, that quote on this slide was actually from my eldest daughter. My eldest daughter's now in year 12, and she was in your position obviously 2 years ago, having to think about revising and building up those study techniques. And she kind of felt that GCSEs really were just one big memory test, and she's not wrong. There's a lot of knowledge and content that you have to revise and remember. So a lot of the technique that you need is about recalling information that's stored in your memory. So a lot of the activities that are effective for revision are the ones that are making your long-term memory work. Okay, so I'm going to take you through some of those strategies that might help. So a little bit of science for you, just in case you've not had enough of that today. You've got your short-term memory and you've got your long-term memory. Your short-term memory works in that it holds about 5 to 9 pieces of information at any one time. So it's quite small. It only stays there for a little bit. It goes in, but if you don't use it, it goes out again. Which is why you often find in lessons and in teaching, we come back to things again and again, because the more you hear it, the more it goes stored into your long-term memory. So your short-term memory is your working memory. It goes in and it can often not stay in, and it's either there or it's not there. So the short-term memory isn't actually useful for revision. So we need activities that develop our long-term memory. So your long-term memory is huge in comparison. And it has a huge number of memories stored in there. You'll know that when you reminisce and think about, when I was 5, I remember doing this. We need to remember what you were doing in your learning. Your long-term memory is persistent. Anything that's in there will stay there. But it takes time to build up your long-term memory. Something you worked on today for the first time is not going to be in your long-term memory yet. So your revision activities have to retrieve information and get it into your long-term memory. Okay? And this is why your revision needs to be active and not passive. Often, adding to this, your brain doesn't always do what it's told to do. So, for example, 2 scenarios here. Just because we want to remember something, it doesn't mean we're going to remember it. So take a scenario that I drove to work. I drove to work behind a blue car. Within 5 minutes of being at work, I've forgotten the colour of that car because my brain's decided that that information isn't important. However, if that car that I drove behind all the way to work this morning actually then, let's say, hit a cat as the cat was running across the road and the driver didn't stop, that's something that my brain will decide is important, and it will recall that later to give a statement to the police. So effective revision relies on you deciding what's important. You've got to know what you know, and you've got to know what you're good at, but you also need to know what you need to be able to revise. Okay, so there's no point revising something that you already know. If you know how to flip fractions and work on multiplying fractions in maths, there's no point revising that. Yes, practice it. There's no point revising it. You need to revise what you don't know. So you need to have a very good understanding from your teachers and from yourselves of what should you be revising over the next 3 weeks. On top of that, guys, you've got an emotional brain, and your teenagers, and your brain is growing. So you actually have this quite big love lobe at the front of your brain, and you might be more interested in what's going on in that area of your life than you are in your learning. So you are going to have to find some time, your memory down in this bottom lobe at the bottom, in order to actually get your revision done. So my point here really is that revision is hard, and there's going to be times when you're going to get frustrated. Your teenage brain is going to get frustrated for you, and you might decide that it's not working. So move away from the revision at that point in time, come back to it in a couple of hours, come back to it the next day feeling a bit more refreshed. And lastly, your brain is growing. Okay, a lot of you already think you're very mature and that you're grown up, but actually your brain is still developing until you are over 25 years old. Okay, and the memory part of your brain here in the yellow circle, the hippocampus, that is actually still growing an awful lot while you're a teenager, and that is the hub of your memory. So all of this combined means that revision is something that's difficult, which is why you have to get it right and you have to start building some strategies now. Don't leave it for a year's time. Okay. Right, so prioritise what you need to plan, look at your exam timetable, and you need to start revising the subjects in that week 1 first, and then start building in your week 2 assessments later on. Okay, plan exactly what you need to revise for each subject, and then organise and prepare what you're going to revise. Right, here we go with some examples of how you can actually do some revision. So spaced practice is about going back over content that you might have studied partly in year 9, partly in the beginning of year 10, maybe while we were on lockdown. You're going to have to go back to some of that information. Set aside a little bit of time a day. Okay, 5 hours spread out over 2 weeks is better than 5 hours all at once. So try and do an hour a day while you're on half term. Review the information you get in your lessons, and then take a break, and then go back and look at it again and do something with that revision. Look back at work we did. So today in English, for example, we've been revising Animal Farm. Some of you might be doing Women in Black, but you haven't been doing that in lessons maybe since December. So this is you already in lessons doing some spaced practice, but you're going to have to keep going back to it. Okay, so spaced practice is about the gaps you leave in between each topic. Okay, when you sit down to study, make sure you're using study strategies rather than just rereading your notes. If you're just sitting, and any parents that are listening to me right now, if your children say to you they've got a book open and they just say, I'm revising, they're probably not. It's not going in. It's not active. In a moment, I'm going to give you some strategies that are active and you're not just reading notes. And it may seem difficult for some information you thought you knew you might forget. You'll come back to it. But the more you do this, the more you come back to it, you'll retrieve the information and it will go into your long-term memory, and then you'll be able to use it in an exam situation. little and often, and it adds up. So by the time we get to your assessments in 3 weeks' time and 2 weeks' time, by the time we get to next year in year 11, you're feeling far more confident and you have better study habits. Right, here's some examples of some revision strategies that you can put in place for that spaced learning. So, put away your class materials, put away any resources, and write or sketch everything you know, for example, about animal and plant cells, if that's one of your topics in science. From your memory, everything that you can remember without using any resources. Okay, write it or sketch it, put some drawings in. Okay, and then go back to your class notes and add in the bits that you missed out or the bits that you needed to correct. That becomes active revision. Use red pen, black pen revision. Okay, so do the stuff without your books and your notes or the websites in black pen. That's the stuff you're retrieving from your long-term memory. Okay, that's the stuff you don't actually need to revise, you already know it, and all you're doing now is you're practicing it and you're building it. When you get your books out and you add to your notes, do that in red pen. Red pen signifies the things that are in your unconscious memory that you haven't yet learned, and they're the things that you need to keep coming back to and building into your long-term memory. So today, for example, my students again were starting to do some work on revision clocks. So in the revision clock, the topic is split into 12 segments, 12 different areas. We were looking at Animal Farm, and each segment of the clock had a different question. To some of my students, I suggested that they wrote in black pen what they could answer for each question from memory, and then when they get their notes out or they go on to bite size, that's when they add in red pen, and then their brain can see the revision that they need to learn. So revision clock, red pen, black pen. Here's some examples. This one's actually uses colours on the revision clock, and you can see there's pictures in there as well. Dual coding with pictures and symbols, as well as writing, is a really effective revision tool as well. Knowledge organisers are ways of collecting information into one place. So you might be provided with a knowledge organiser. So you might have a teacher that gives you a knowledge organiser. This is an example from one on cell structures and cell transport. But it's what you do with it that then becomes important. So again, you could try and remember it from memory and write it up from memory. Or you could do something else with it. You could reduce it into 10 important words. You could turn the middle section into 6 pictures that symbolise the content in that middle section. So turning the content into something useful is far better than just reading the knowledge organiser. If you don't have a knowledge organiser, create one. The one on the right here is for a poem. It's not a poem Year 10 needs to study right now, but this is a blank knowledge organiser that someone can complete themselves, and that would equally help you revise that content. You can see here it's got topic headings such as reduce the poem, remember a key quotation, criticise the poem, transform it into an image, compare it to something different, magpie and steal a couple of good quotes that you will talk about in an exam. So creating your own knowledge organisers for any topic is another useful revision strategy. The Magenta Principles are a learning strategy from a teaching and learning enthusiast and specialist called Mike Hughes. If you can take something you've learned and do something with it, reduce it, change it into an image, connect it to another piece of learning, arrange it or justify or prioritise the most important fact, compare it to a different topic, act it out. Some of you might want to act it out or change it into a quiz. Doing something with your content is something that will help you revise it. The next, this document is a bit small to see, but we will be sharing slides so you'll be able to zoom in and see these. This is an example of different Magenta style activities that you can do for revision that you can use for any subject. So I will share that on the website and email that out and put it on the Teams area. But here's a couple of activities. So reducing, you can turn all of today's learning onto one flashcard. So take everything you learned in your lesson today and turn it onto one flashcard. So you have to write and justify key points rather than all of it. You could reduce your learning into a mind map. There's a little example there. You could do a 5-5-1 activity. Reduce your learning into 5 sentences, then 5 words, and then 1 question. And all of that is helping your brain remember that topic in a far more efficient way than just reading. If you're more creative and you want to create something with your revision, create a quiz. Okay, we've done a lot of low stakes quizzing in lessons over the last 6 months. Do your own. Create a quiz on Woman in Black or Animal Farm, but make sure you create the questions and the answers. If you're doing revision with a friend, you can then test each other on your quizzes. Create your own knowledge organiser or page from a textbook. Create a toughest exam style question to pose to someone else. Some of my students might recognise this very annoying picture here. It was actually for Christmas Carol, and I made them listen to a quote song. It was quite annoying, but it made them remember the quotes. So can you create a rap or a mnemonic or a song for topics that's going to help you remember that topic? Here is another mnemonic. That's where letters spell out words or initials to help you remember key things. This is an English one that says deforest, that helps you remember some persuasive techniques to put into your own writing. So if you do any of those kind of tasks with your revision, it's going to go into your long-term memory more effectively. Okay, a couple of slides about exam technique, because it's going to be the first time for a long time for some of these students that they're actually going to be sitting in a formal exam. So a couple of techniques to help you understand the questions and face the questions. This is called the bug technique. So you can apply this to any question you get in an exam, whether it be a maths question, science question, English question, technology question, any question you get, you can apply this technique to. So bug is an acronym, and it stands for box, underline, and then glance. So box is the box in the command word. What is it that the question's actually asking you to do? Underline is for the theme or the focus. So what is the command asking us to focus on? And then the glance is for extra information. I tend to show that on my questions with a circle. So the example here is actually an A-level example, but that doesn't matter. It says the command is to discuss the importance. So the student, in this case, has to discuss the importance of something. They have to say how important a topic is. The underlined section is about coastal environments and the processes for the coast. So they have to be able to talk about the coastal environments and how important they are. And then the extra information is they've got to link it to a case study that they've studied in geography. This is a technique that can be applied to any question. It's far better than just highlight the keywords. Highlighting the keywords or underlining the keywords means students just end up with a question that's all underlined or all highlighted yellow. It doesn't help them focus in on what the question's asking them to do. There's another example. Summarises ways in which paintballing is a safe sport as described in passage B. So here's a student, the command is to summarise, so they've got to put that information into a very short version in their own words. The focus is about paintballing being a safe sport, and it's from passage B, not passage A. So that helps them focus in on what they've got to do for that question. And as I said, this skill can be applied to any style question. On these slides, and as I said, Mr. Woodhouse has already put this in Teams, there's a whole load of questions on these slides that you can go and practice that skill on, from a range of different exams, from science exams, business exams. I think there's an art question or product design question on there. You go and practice that bug technique that will help you out when you're sitting with an exam paper in front of you. The last couple of slides are around maths revision. So this is a slide from the maths department. Often revising maths is a little bit different to other subjects. So this takes you through some steps on how to revise maths specifically, and there's some useful links on that slide as well. I've screenshotted it onto the next couple of slides so it's a bit bigger so that you can go back and see that. But it's about what do you know, recaps some topics, tells you how to do that in your exercise books, in Hegarty, on YouTube, then tells you where to practice the topics, and then your final steps to success are putting it into practice, and then what you know now, and with those useful links. So because maths can sometimes be slightly different in terms of its revision, I've included that on there for you. If you want to practice timings, a revision power hour is a useful technique for practicing your times in an exam. So choose a past paper question. Spend 20 minutes revising that question using your books and everything you know. Then only spend 20 minutes answering the question. You would normally have longer in an exam for most questions, but just spend 20 minutes and then ask your teacher to have a look at it. Okay? Or if you're feeling confident enough, look at the mark scheme yourself on the exam websites and have a go at yourself, thinking how you would do on that. Okay, so revision power hour is another useful strategy for exam technique. and this slide just shows you where you can go to get exam questions from. So as long as you know what exam boards you're doing, you can have a little look on their websites. But this may be a technique that you might decide to do as we move towards into year 11, rather than necessarily for these assessments coming up. I think that is pretty much it from Mr. Woodhouse and us, other than to say, good luck. The fact that you're here shows that you've already put in some time aside to think about revision. Success is a long journey, okay? People think that it's a nice straight line and that we just have to put a lot of effort in and we will get to where we want to go. It's not as easy as that. Success is actually a bit messy. It sometimes doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere, but as long as we keep putting the effort in, we will get there and you will be successful. There'll come times when you're revising when you're going to want to give up, but don't, okay? Keep going, and we're here to support and we're here to help you. I don't know if you've got anything else left to say, Mr. Woodhouse, to finish.
Just thank you very much for attending this evening, and everything that was shown and shared with you this evening is all up on our Teams page. So if you constantly attend Teams page and go to files, there's a little file there which says assessments 21. And I'll give you all the information on the timetables and what we're sharing this evening on the strategies. And if there's any questions or any follow-up, please just drop us an email or catch us tomorrow. Our parents want to drop an email or give us a call, and that's absolutely fine as well over the days or during the assessment window. That's absolutely fine. So thank you very much for your attendance this evening, and hope you found it very useful going forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Year 10.
Thank you.